when closed in April, went up by almost 15% more on the same road and just right beside, same precinct and also the same leasehold tenure.
Yeah, that's right. So, eventually, what does this mean for the Dunearn House buyers, right? Eventually, this will eventually form a form of price support. So even like the three bedders here, right, the capital gain is also around 130 to 285k over a 3 to 4 year holding period lah. So in this sense, leasehold has made more money than freehold. So if you have been following Singapore's property market closely this year, there's been one new launch that's dominated every conversation in the core central region space. And that is Dunearn House, which is slated to launch in July 2026.
And honestly, Ollie, every time I bring it up with clients, the first thing they say is, but it's leasehold, right?
Yeah.
And yes, it is 99 years leasehold, but here's the thing. It's sitting right in the middle of one of Singapore's most freehold dominant neighbourhoods. The disparity between the new leasehold launch and also the freehold resale options around is exactly what we are unpacking today.
So as always, if you like our content, feel free to subscribe. And we've also left our contact here if you want to know more about Dunearn House or even other projects in the vicinity or in Singapore in general.
So officially, the project name is Dunearn House, and it is developed as a joint venture between Fraser's Property, CSC Land, and as well as Sekisui House from Japan. The site's address is 760, 762, and 766.
768, 770.
Dunearn Road, District 11, specifically in the Bukit Timah Swiss Club subzone of the CCR.
Yep. And one thing we would like to highlight right away, this is technically the first non-landed residential development in District 11, or rather in the Swiss Club subzone in 33 years. Yeah, which is actually more than 3 decades ago. That's how long it is.
And onto some quick fire facts. The project is 5 blocks, 2 blocks of 19 stories and 3 blocks of 10 stories, a total of 380 units, which is an ideal mid-sized development. And the land cost was about 1,410 PSF per plot ratio. The expected vacant possession is 31st December 2030.
So I'll say being up to level 19 is a really important detail because for Dunearn House, right, this will possibly be the tallest residential development between the Yarwood Avenue and the Stevens Road stretch. In fact, for the views, we are looking from level 19. So there'll be 2 main set of views, both the north view and the south view. So the north view will be looking towards the Turf City estate. And I would say this will be quite a spectacular view, especially with all the transformation that is happening in the area. And facing south, you will actually be overlooking the GCB Enclave and the landed estates in Bukit Timah. So I'll say, there's very little that will be blocking, especially this set of views. Okay, so next we have the unit mix and we'll put it up on screen.
So almost half of the developments are the 2 bedrooms, which speaks to the investor and young professional market. I think the 3 bedrooms will have the more compact and also more premium versions to cater to different sets of budgets for own stay buyers. Okay, we have the 872 square feet all the way until 1,001 square feet, which will make up the hotly contested unit type. I would say the 4-bedroom allocation is roughly about close to 30%, quite significant for a project of this size, and those that go all the way up to even 1,378 square feet, which is the 4-bedroom premium plus study type. Yeah, so that's a proper family size.
So the luxury collection and the pinnacle collection is also split up. So that's worth a quick mention because it gives buyers a clear choice. So the 10-story blocks itself, blocks 766, 768 and 770, these actually form part of the luxury collection in Dunearn House. For the 19-story blocks, these are actually forming part of the Pinnacle collection. So this will be where the higher floor units with the most commanding views will be. And this is where most of the 4 bidders will eventually be concentrated at.
Before we get into the number comparison, I think we need to spend a moment on the Turf City transformation story.
Oh yes, that's right. So you're saying, as most people have been actually hearing, this whole area is now being completely transformed under the URA master plan. So the plan eventually, right, is for 15,000 to 20,000 new homes, both public as well as private, on this, I think we call this heritage grounds because there's been a lot of history behind the whole estate here.
Yes.
Yeah. So the new Turf City estate is also planned as a car light planning district because I think the government is trying to encourage a lot of pedestrians cycling in this area as well. So, whether this will be an issue as well, because this will affect car park ratio. So we'll also touch a bit on that.
Yeah, similar to the Tengah and Bella
Bayshore area. Yeah, that's right. So there will also be 22 heritage buildings in this area that will be conserved. These are actually the old stables lah. There are a lot of bungalows that are nearby as well. And I think the interesting one is also the grandstands will be preserved in this area right over here. There's also going to be a new central open space in the north and south grandstands, and that's actually around twice the size of Padang. Yeah, which is quite amazing. Yeah, so this will be the new heart of this new area in a sense.
Yeah, it looks like undergoing a huge transformation in this part of Singapore as well.
That's right.
So from a first mover perspective, I think Dunearn House is literally the entry point to this entire transformation story. When the Turf City estate is fully built out, what residents will have on their doorstep are properly planned mixed-use neighborhood with its own MRT station, I think retail, even community facilities, schools definitely, and also the heritage parks. That doesn't exist yet, but the government blueprint is very much in place as you can see.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, so there's going to be HDBs in this area for the very first time. Slightly controversial. People staying there, existing residents there might find it a bit of a mixed experience. So, but that will come with a lot of amenities as you mentioned. Yeah, and I'll say that of course the very key thing over here is that there's going to be a dedicated MRT, which is the Turf City MRT that's planned in this area. So this will actually be part of the Cross Island line. And this will be an enormous uplift in this area especially. Now there's already the downtown line, but this will be a very big supplement for the area itself.
The first mover argument is real. I think you are buying before the full transformation is even priced in.
Also, here's the thing. The market itself has given a very clear signal of this confidence as well of the transformation. In fact, when we were putting this video together, there was a tender for the second GLS site in Dunearn Road, which is right next to Dunearn House. So this is actually the plot that Wing Tai won. In fact, 6 bids in total were received. And the winner was eventually the joint venture between Wing Tai and Metro Holdings, which came in with a top bid at 533 million, eventually amounts to 1625 per square foot per plot ratio.
Wow, let's just sit with the numbers for a second. 1625 PSF per plot ratio, whereas for Dunearn House site, Fraser's, CSC and also Secusi House, only purchased this at only 1410 PSF per plot ratio when they won the GLS tender. So the adjacent site, when closed in April, went up by almost 15% more on the same road and just right beside, same precinct and also the same leasehold tenure.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, eventually, what does this mean for the Dunearn House buyers, right? Eventually, this will eventually form a form of price support in a very simpler sense. So you think about it this way, when Wing Tai and Metro actually won this land at 1625 per square foot, right? Their project is expected to launch probably in the second half of next year, 2027. Based on this land price, we can probably see that eventually they will eventually sell at 3,200 to maybe even up to 3,400 per square foot on average.
Wow, so you have a situation where the project literally next door in the same precinct, not slightly, but quite a bit higher in terms of the land cost. Yeah, so it's going to launch probably 1 year plus later after Dunearn House. At this, it actually creates a pricing ceiling for the area that benefits the Dunearn House buyers. So if you actually enter into Dunearn House at launch, the Wing Tai project opens up at 3.2 or even up to 3.4 per square foot next door. Your unit has a very, I guess, visible comparable benchmark supporting the resale value.
And I would say there's another layer to this. The fact that the second site over here, actually has the 6 bidders, right? And there's actually a less than 10% spread between the first and second bidder. So that tells you that it's not just one developer making a very speculative bid for it. In fact, the second developer here was Fraser's themselves. So, they already bid 1576 per square foot, which is higher than their own plot previously. So that gives you a very clear sense of how they value the plot itself.
Yeah, I guess they were outbidded after all. Yeah. So for the buyers who are on the fence about whether Dunearn House is priced correctly, the adjacent land transaction is your answer. The market has just paid 15% over for the same type of leasehold land, the same road. So Dunearn House at the lower land cost has room to price attractively while still giving the developer a healthy margin, I would say. Yeah.
That's right. So now let's dive in deeper into the location and also discuss why this location is such a draw.
So connectivity is a big selling point, I would say. Dunearn House is just about 4 minutes walk to 6th Avenue MRT on the downtown line. Yep. From 6th Avenue, you are just 1 stop to King Albert Park and 2 stops to Beauty World, where another huge transformation is also in play, as well as 6 MRT stops to Orchard Road and also 9 stops to CBD down the downtown line.
Yeah, and I think if you drive, most people will know that as you drive along Eng Neo Avenue, It's just a 3 minutes drive to the PIE itself. Yeah, of course, nearby, people who stay in this area will know that very used to going to places like Serene Centre. They'll go to One Holland V, especially in just a 10-minute drive, and also it's just a 12-minute drive to even Dempsey lah. And the entire, this is all we call this the 10-minute lifestyle over here lah. In actually the government's master plan. So these are all within a very close vicinity.
I think all the cafes, eateries, the well-known ones are also very close by vicinity lah. So the nature angle is underrated as well for Dunearn House, I feel, because you are sitting right along the future Bukit Timah Rochor Green corridor, an upcoming 11 km linear park that you'll get that connects the Singapore Botanic Gardens, Gardens by the Bay, and even the Jurong Lake Gardens.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest park connections you will ever see lah. Yeah, and I'll say if you value the greenery and the outdoor living, it doesn't get much better than in Bukit Timah for sure. Right?
Okay, and schools, which is definitely non-negotiable for a lot of Bukit Timah buyers. We're talking about Methodist Girls' Schools, Nanyang Primary, even Pei Hwa, Presbyterian, RGS, Henry Park Primary, all in the immediate school belt. So most buyers are awaiting the confirmation if Dunearn House is within 1 km to MGS specifically. Based on initial estimations, it looks like it likely is, but we'll have to wait for the one map to update lah. We cannot give you any false promises at this stage. Yeah. Then at the secondary school level, we have also Nanyang Girls High, Hwa Chong Institution, SCGS, and also Singapore Chinese Girls, St. Joseph's Institution, SJI. And there's also NJC, National JC for junior college, and plus a full list of international schools, including the Swiss School, Chatsworth International, ACSI, and also Hwa Chong International.
Yeah, so basically every single school here is blockbuster. Yeah. For the expat families, especially, and the Singapore PRs or PR citizens, this school belt alone, right, justifies the address itself. Yeah, which is why this is, I'll say, it might be not unfair to say this is the single most important reason why people will actually pay a premium to stay in this area.
Yeah, totally agree. We have resale listings in the area. A lot of buyers that come in are buying for the school address lah. Yeah.
Now let's dive into the competitive analysis for the vicinity, which is really the heart of this video. So if you're deciding between Dunearn House and the surrounding resale options nearby, you actually need to understand who's actually competing with you in terms of price and also what you're getting for your money if you buy a property here.
Yeah, that's right. And the key thing that makes this neighborhood interesting is that almost everything around this Dunearn House is freehold. There are projects like Royal Green, 6th Avenue Residences, 6th Avenue Ville, or 5th Avenue Condo as well, among many others.
Yeah, I think if you go down to the King Albert stretch, all the Maplewood,
freehold,
Cascadia, Nexus, there's even more even at that stretch, which is very near
Blossomville and all this, yeah.
I think one thing that first that really stands out is just the sheer range of difference in price. Because we have one very old leasehold condo here called Dunearn Lodge. Dunearn House Lodge is actually now transacting around 1,500 per square foot. And then actually if you go outwards towards the tier, right, the projects like Royal Green, they are transacting close to $3,000 per square foot. It's almost more than double. So actually you can see quite a bit of disparity here. And I'll say, this immediately raises the question, right? So if, at Dunearn House, if we are ranging from 2,008 to 3,100 per square foot based on the land price, they will be that, is this actually good value if we compare to even the resale developments here?
Let's go through each comparison properly, whether this will actually set a new benchmark, whether it's actually priced correctly or not.
Yeah.
So let's start with the leasehold versus leasehold comparison first. So we have Dunearn House versus 4th Avenue Residences, which already TOP in 2023. So because this is the most apple-to-apple comparison you can get, I would say it's still relatively new. 4th Avenue is by All Green Properties, also 99 years, launched in 2019 and completed in 2022, around 2023 period. So it has a total of 476 units, and the resale range currently is about 2.4 to even about 2.4 to 2.5 on average.
So average is around 2,500 per square foot. Yeah, so I would say the most important ones here is the difference in lease. 4th Avenue's lease actually started in 2018. Yeah, so Dunearn House will start in September 2025. So if you compare leasehold to leasehold, 4th Avenue will be a 7 difference. Okay, 7 years older than Dunearn House itself. So, but then we talk about the flip side, right? So Dunearn House is expected to launch at a higher per square foot compared to 4th Avenue's current resale price. So I think if we saw the land price, at over 1,400 per square foot, they're probably expected to launch at around 2,008 to 3,100 per square foot. So on paper, I'll say, there's a premium to the surrounding resale leasehold. that's already in a very well established, more towards the neighborhood, towards the 6th Avenue side.
So then again, we also talk about 4th Avenue being non-harmonized compared to Dunearn House, which is going to be harmonized. So essentially, there's around about a 7% difference in terms of the PSF. So if we add that into the current average PSF of 4th Avenue residences, that works out to be about 2678 PSF. So just slightly below the predicted average PSF of Dunearn House.
So I'll say, the Turf City narrative is also something that the projects towards the 6th Avenue side doesn't have, although it's very nearby, of course. But Dunearn House will definitely be at the doorstep of all the Turf City transformation. So that's one very big difference between the 4th Avenue side and then the District 11 side, where the Turf City side is.
I think that Dunearn House will have that extra growth catalyst.
Yeah. So if we take a look at the profitability of 4th Avenue residences, so there are some nuances we need to take note of. Because in general, this development being leasehold still has proven profitability. Yeah, but if we take a closer look, right, the higher profits are leaning more towards the 3-bedders as well as the 4-bedrooms. So the 3-bedder and 4-bedder, for example, the recent 3-bedder, right, with the 4-year, 6-month holding period, did have a capital gain of 470k, which is almost $500,000, which is not too bad.
Not surprising.
Yeah, and then the 4-bedder also did have 339k capital gain. So, and then this is not very surprising, right? Because this is a very family stay area. A lot of people are looking for schools. So the main demand will be in the 3 and 4-bedder types. Yeah. But if you're looking at the 2-bedders,
So if you are looking to buy a 2-bedroom at Dunearn House, you're likely to get you likely have to have a longer holding period if you want to make more profits, I would say.
Yeah, because as we can see, right, the 1 and 2-bedder profits here,
the annualized returns are in the past few years. I think you need to hold a bit longer to really see the profitability.
Yeah, because you can see even some of the 1-bedder, 2-bedders, in the past 5 years they made like 87k or 100k I'll say this is rather modest.
Yeah.
So especially if you're looking at Dunearn House, right? Of course, we have to see what is your comfortable budget and then see what is the
intention of
the budget as well.
So now let's look at the freehold comparisons. I think the most direct comparison you can get is Royal Green because that is also relatively new and TOP in 2021 and also same thing very close to the same MRT.
So Royal Green also developed by All Green. So they also did launch the 2 projects side by side together with 4th Avenue.
Yep.
So this is a smaller project in general. So there's 285 units and the key thing is that it's freehold. Right? So it sits along Anamalai Avenue, so very close to all the coffee shops surrounding there. Also very close to 6th Avenue MRT, around 250 meters, the same school belt as well. Okay, and currently now the per square foot, right, the range is actually from around 2005 until 2981 per square foot thereabouts.
I think if you give that harmonization factor as well, that works out to be close to 3,000 per square foot on average. Yeah. So if we compare the estimated launch PSF of Dunearn House versus average PSF of Royal Green if it were to be harmonized, that's about probably around 10 to 15% gap.
Thereabouts.
Yeah. Which is actually the textbook freehold premium in Singapore. So if Royal Green were to be harmonized, that works out to be about close to 3,000 per square foot on average. So if we compare the gap versus leasehold
of Dunearn House, they're starting around 2008. Right, so that's around 10 to 15% premium for Royal Green's freehold versus Dunearn House at 2008. Anyway, this is roughly the textbook freehold premium in Singapore anyway if we compare leasehold and freehold. So I'll say buyers who pay a higher entry price for Royal Green is kind of justified.
Okay, yeah. I guess that's where you're coming from. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So of course, the Royal Green being freehold, of course, 30 years later, it will just have the freehold status, right? There won't be any lease decay issues. So that's the fundamental difference.
I guess here's where the value proposition of Dunearn House lies, with the quantum advantage that comes with harmonization.
So I think the interesting comparison now, if we compare 4th Avenue residences and then we compare Royal Green, because this is now the leasehold freehold launch around the same time.
In the same location.
Yeah, and we compare side by side, right, the profitability. So just now we did flash it, but of course we can see 4th Avenue having profits of up to 500k, for a 3-bedder, 4-bedders also having around 400k margin. So this is the leasehold profit. Now, if you look at Royal Green, don't you think the profits look very modest? Yeah.
So compared to 4th Avenue, it's much lower, I would say.
Much lower. So even like the 3-bedders here, right, the capital gain is also around 130 to 285k over a 3 to 4 year holding period. So in this sense, leasehold has made more money than Freehold.
Correct.
So there are some different nuances lah. So because Royal Green is also a smaller land plot, they're only up to level 5. Which is why we mentioned just now, Dunearn House being up to level 10 and 19. This one is a very, very big advantage and it's a different product altogether.
Yeah, compared to 4th Avenue, which goes up to probably level
12 thereabouts.
Yeah, about there.
Yeah.
So difference there. And I think, for 4th Avenue, of course, being leasehold actually launched at a much lower PSF as well. So I think in terms of entry price, of the buyers felt that it's more attractive and maybe more palatable at that point in time.
Yeah, so the point is that just because it's freehold doesn't mean it will make more. So that's the summary. So let's take entry price for a 3-bedder just to illustrate some points here. So for example, if we take Dunearn House, because they gave some of the unit mix already at 872 square feet for the smallest 3-bedder, we assume 3,000 per square foot, to be looking at entry quantum of around 0.6 million for a 3-bedder unit type. And I think, in this area it's quite well known that this quantum for 3-bedder almost impossible to find.
Yes.
So this one is going to be quite a very valuable proposition.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking in the resale in the vicinity, firstly, they are all freehold. Of course, there's a premium to it, and of course, the sizes are bigger.
Yeah.
So later we'll flash this shortly. So we can compare this with a Royal Green, similar 980 square feet, 3-bedroom. Transacting at about 300k premium, almost hitting 3 million at the 2.92 mil range. If you are looking at the comfortable entry area, I guess, so from this perspective, Dunearn House is definitely looking very attractive.
Yeah, especially at a 300k quantum difference. I'll say, other than the newer freehold in this area or the newer leasehold, I think one thing we really need to look at also, if you're a buyer, right, we have to look and compare with the older freehold in this area, because this will be a bit more impactful. Because it's a fact that in this area, a lot of the rich landed owners, they can afford up to 3 to 4 mil. They can buy the bigger freehold properties as well. So let's take a look.
So we'll look at 2 of the freehold developments just across the road, essentially 5th Avenue Condo and so 6th Avenue Ville. So for a richer comparison, we'll compare the quantum perspective for each bedroom type.
So looks like these projects are really quite old, right? So if we see a 5th Avenue Condo, right, actually TOP in 1998. And 6th Avenue Ville actually TOP in 1999, which is when we were in primary school. Yeah, so that's how old it is. So, we'll start first from the 2-bedders. So as you can see from this layout, right, for 5th Avenue Condo, this area of condos had very big floor plates. In fact, the 2-bedder here at 5th Avenue is at a massive 1,346 square feet. And the most recent transaction here this year, in February, actually this 2-bedder transacted for 3.1 million.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she really want to compare this with Dunearn House. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 1346 PSF for 2-bedroom, if you factor in potentially the harmonization and things like that, that's like the size of the 4-bedroom of Dunearn House. Yeah. And probably the price range, probably more slightly in between the 3 and 4-bedroom, at the 3 mil mark. Yeah. So from a quantum perspective, I think, if you're looking at Dunearn House, let's say we take an average of 3,000 PSF on average for, let's say, the 2-bedroom, which, is about 527 to 678 square feet. We are expecting about 1.58 to 2 million. So essentially, that is around 1 to 1.5 million difference in terms of the price if we compare that with a 5th Avenue condo. Yeah.
Yeah. So of course, 5th Avenue condo, 3.1 million, not anybody can buy 2-bedder for 3 mil. Yeah, it's very different. So somebody who will buy 5th Avenue, this kind of layout, they will not buy 600 square feet 2-bedder at Dunearn House. It's a very different product. So you can see actually they gave us the floor plan for the Dunearn House 2+ study already. So this is actually at 667 square feet. This will be the show flat layout. So, this kind of layout here, I'll say
2+ study.
Yeah, 2+ study, correct. So, this kind of layout probably caters to a lot of dings, singles. Yeah, whereas the 5th Avenue one can probably still cater for a family. So that will be the difference that we see here. So that's just one quantum difference we like to highlight.
Yes. So for the 3-bedroom, if we also can see a similar trend. So for 6th Avenue Ville, we are getting 1582 square feet for a 3-bed, 3-bath. So recently it was transacted at 3.22 million last year. So if we compare that to Dunearn House, the 3-bedroom, let's say project about 3,000 PSF, we can see the price range, likely will be around 2.6 to 3 mil. Here we have the floor plan for the 947 square feet layout for Dunearn House for the 3+ study. While it's definitely loses in terms of the size compared to 6th Avenue Ville, I think it's still an efficient layout, when it comes to the potential, in terms of the
quantum
difference, right? Yeah, correct.
So you can see here, right, actually, if we compare this 3.2 mil at 6th Avenue Ville and we compare with Dunearn House at this entry price, right, we could see that both entry prices could be a difference of the $500,000. Yeah, just from this perspective lah.
Correct.
Yeah, and then if we see even like the 4-bedroom, right? So the 4-bedder here in 5th Avenue condo is massive lah. Yeah, so the 4-bed, 4-bath here, 2433 square feet, it's actually at 4.8 million. Yeah, so for those people who say that 4.8 million can buy landed, right? There are also people who will still buy a condo. Yeah, it transacted this year only. So 4.8 million, and then we can see 6th Avenue View, they transacted at 1755 square feet, 4-bedder at 3.5 mil. Now, of course, for Dunearn House, right, there is a range of layouts as well. Right? There's a more compact 1184 square feet, 4-bedroom, and then we go to the 4-bed plus study at 1378. So same thing at 3,000 per square foot, it will range from 3.55 to 4 mil. Yeah, so again, if we compare, say, 5th Avenue and we compare Dunearn House, that's also another 800K difference, or even more than 800K, up to $1 million difference for a 4-bedder. So, not everyone can afford 4.8, but there'll be people who can afford 3.8, 3.5 mil. Yeah, so that's the difference. So to wrap it up, what we actually uncovered today is, let's say if you were to look at Dunearn House and whether it's a good idea to buy it as a leasehold property or not, or let's say we compare this with the older freehold condos in the area. As mentioned, we did some study on 5th Avenue, 6th Avenue View. So here are just some pros and cons just to summarize. So, for Dunearn House, it will be the first entryway into the Turf City transformation. They first launched in this area in more than 30 years. Yeah, we also have the neighboring plot, right, at Wing Tai. They are already bid at 15%, so that's the assurance that your neighbor is already going to bid much higher than you.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, the lower quantum versus the freehold neighbors, we saw the 4-bedders even having a 1 mil quantum difference, 3-bedders having a 600K difference. Yeah, but of course, this area, Bukit Timah mindset will be Bukit Timah mindset. So at the end of the day, there'll also be the leasehold inferiority in a sense.
But I think it's very hard to quantify that looking at the recent launches, let's say in Holland. Things
Sky Holland did very well.
Yeah. It is like leasehold, but it's still like almost fully sold out on launch day. So I guess maybe like the younger crowd or the kind of buyer profiles these days, they don't mind entering a leasehold in a good location.
Yeah.
If the price point is, a very sweet spot kind of price point. Yeah.
And then just now also we uncovered that, the 1-bedder, 2-bedder types, right, in the 4th Avenue and Royal Green. These are the unit types that we can see that maybe they've been less in trend in the last 2 to 3 years because it's a very popular area for family stay. So I'll say, if you're looking to a 2-bedder here, especially for pure investment, then this is something that you need to consider. If you have the budget for 3-bedder, 4-bedder, you should probably push towards that way. Yeah.
I mean, if you are buying to hold for long term and you just really want the location, then of course, by all means, you can consider the smaller bedroom types first. But of course, at what kind of pricing or PSF is the walkaway price, then that's where you can reach out to us if you want to have a deeper analysis. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, for the older freehold condos, the freehold belief in Bukit Timah is still very strong. So this will be, I'll say, in for a long period of time. If you compare to Katong, it's the same kind of mindset as well. And then, of course, larger floor plates. So for those people who cannot compromise on space, then this is something that you definitely have to go for the resale freehold condos here. Yeah. But of course, with the older condos, right, the renovation cost is going to be a factor that is something you have to consider, right?
Yep.
Imagine renovating a 1,300 square feet 2-bedder versus renovating a new 600 square feet 2-bedder is very different.
And of course, the maintenance and outlook of the individual developments as well. I mean, we do hear of a little bit more horror stories for much older developments whereby, the residents are less willing to put in more money into the maintenance of the building itself. Yeah, because they don't want to put too much or, that kind of things.
So maybe a final point also, if you're going for rental, right, in this area, definitely if you go for rental yield, the leasehold property, lower entry price would be a better rental yield. If you're going to pay 3 mil for a 2-bedder in 5th Avenue, for example, you're going to rent out, the rental yield doesn't make sense too much.
Yes,
in comparison.
For sure.
So this comes to the end of our video for Dunearn House. So yeah, we tried to keep it a bit more short and sweet this time. So if you have any questions, you want to get updated with the latest floor plan, we have our contact here. Feel free to contact us and we'll be happy to reach out.
See you in the next video. Bye.
Bye-bye.